Good morning, you beautiful human beings. Wake up a little bit, huh? How about if I stomp, you clap? Can we do that a couple times? Can we do that? Yeah? Can we do that? Yes? Okay. Come on, you can do better than that. Come on. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. We got to get some energy going in here. Holy cow, everybody's staring at their phones. So, I'm here. We're going to talk a little bit about Saudi Arabia and its Vision 2030. I want to thank Fahad. I want to thank Fatima. I want to thank the whole Aspar World Forum crew for bringing me over here. It was an 8,000-mile trip to get here, but I'm very happy to be here. So, let's get going. Why are we all here? Who knows this quote? Anybody? Who said this? Somebody's got to know. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. That's why we are here, okay? Because in this region, in Saudi Arabia, in this time in world history, here's what we're facing, okay? From a socioeconomic perspective, from an Earth system perspective, we are dealing with exponential growth in every single category that is an existential risk to human beings. Let me say that again. In every single category, we are at existential threat as human beings, particularly in the Arab world, and in particular in Saudi Arabia, which is the reason why I'm here. Because it's one thing to talk about economic development, entrepreneurship, startups. It's a whole other thing to understand how to take entrepreneurship, innovation, and startups and solve what's behind me right now. And that's what we're going to spend the time doing over the course of the next 20 minutes. So, the goal. Here's what we're going to do. Seems a little ambitious, but I promise you we're going to get there, okay? We're going to create an updated vision for Saudi Arabia, a much more tangible vision than what the vision is for your country right now. It's going to be anchored in place by a very dynamic economic development strategy as well. I'm going to show you how in 10 years when we can create $500 billion in new value in this country. Because the thing is, we don't need hundreds of thousands of companies. We need a couple companies that are very targeted, very focused in a couple of particular sectors, which is what we're going to discuss. Okay? So, what does success look like? What is the platform that we have for success here in Saudi Arabia? Unimaginable wealth. You have $34 trillion of resources in the ground, my friends. That's a lot of resources to leverage strategically to do the right things right now in world history. Number 2, unparalleled economic platform. You have the most profitable company in human history, Saudi Aramco. Pretty interesting. Not until 38, 39, oil was founded in this country. So in the course of 80 years, all of a sudden Saudi Arabia has gone from nothing to where it is today. There is actually a rapid acceleration in terms of innovation in your DNA over and over again. Okay? Lastly, and particularly this time in world history, when it comes to geopolitics, okay, per capita in terms of annual budget, Saudi Arabia is number 2 in the world in military spending. And military spending means safety, security, and geopolitical influence. That means that Saudi Arabia punches way above its weight in terms of world power, in terms of the world stage, in terms of the future of the world. The question is, how do we go from here to way over there? And how do we do it not like this, because this is what all the other countries are doing. Bahrain, Oman, all of them, they're moving like this. We need to start moving like this. And pretty soon, you can't just even be doing that. You got to go, bing, bing. That's called leapfrogging. Because that's the only way we're going to leverage $34 trillion in resources, a military budget to do the right things at the right time before those exponential trends kill all of us. Okay? So, this is what Saudi Arabia, I would propose to you folks, has the opportunity to do. Be the beacon of the quality of life in a 21st century Silk Road. So let's discuss how we're going to design that. But where are we now, right? Right now, believe it or not, Saudi Arabia is number 32 in terms of the best country to live in the world. Now, if you look at these facts, right, adventure is pretty low, right, for obvious reasons. Citizenship, little low. Entrepreneurship's emerging. Heritage, which I found interesting, is actually low, right, in terms of cultural appropriations and things like that, in terms of building culture. But look at movers. Look at the movers sector, right? Number 9 in the world. That's how rapid the country is industrializing, how rapidly it's changing, how rapidly it's becoming dynamic, right? Number 9 in the world out of more than 200 countries, right? And if you look at the power as well, number 9. So if you're moving quick and you have lots of power, folks, you can do anything you want in the world if you design it the right way, okay? That's the opportunity your country has. The challenge becomes in designing it the right way, which is what we're going to spend the rest of the talk about. First, we're going to talk about a couple quick challenges. We think that innovation is just information technology, and we just need more smartphones, we just need more information technology, and we sprinkle pixie dust and it's magically, poof, going to create tons of jobs and tons of economic opportunity. But that's fundamentally not true, and here's why. Because all of those graphs that I showed you before about exponential trends, what they're doing is taking the pillars of our world, the pillars of community, right? And they're achieving the opposite of their original intention, okay? So what we have right now in the world, we have environment that's devolving into exploitation, right? We're raping and pillaging our resources. In many parts of the world, particularly we're seeing this in Hong Kong right now, we have governments devolving into dictatorships. We have healthcare that's turning into sick care. And we have business that's turning into monopoly. These are the structural world trends that are achieving the opposite of their original intention and being reinforced economically, technologically, and in some cases, militarily, okay? So, my job is to help you see a different future, to see a future where you can look again in a different way, in a different perspective, in a different lens, so we can change not just the future of Riyadh, not just the future of Saudi Arabia, but the entire Arab world. So, where do we start? Number 1, it starts with the mind, because if you don't re-hardwire the mindset, if you don't re-hardwire the synapses, nothing's going to change, okay? So, I hear this all the time, spend a lot of time in the Arab world. Oh, that's impossible, Gary, it can't be done. It's not done this way. I propose to you, ladies and gentlemen, here's what they really mean. According to my very limited amount of experience and narrow understanding of reality, that's very unlikely. Because let me tell you, my friends, most of the people who say it can't be done, it won't be done, or it shouldn't be done are still stuck in 17th century, 18th century, 19th century, and even 20th century paradigms, okay? We live in the 21st century now. And in the 21st century, things happen more rapid, bigger, bolder, brighter, faster. And so you have to be very strategic in how you move in all the different parts of your economy. So I'm going to talk very quickly about why innovation fails. And I put up a lot of words simply so it's easy for folks to take pictures, as I see many of you folks doing right now, okay? So what we forget about innovation is that it lives in 4 disciplines, and the most important discipline it starts in is in art. It starts in social systems, it starts with trust, and it starts with empathy. That's the 20% of the formula that makes 80% of the difference in whether you can build innovations, create things, create jobs, and have a future-forward economy. Okay? Number 2, nonlinear dynamics. The way in which innovation works is asymmetric. It comes from multiple angles all at the same time, which means planning for it in a lot of ways systematically retards the opportunity for innovation. Third, chaos theory. Okay? Innovation is chaotic, but it's not random. And there's a very big difference because randomness is completely uncertain. Okay? Chaos is predictable as long as you understand all the different dynamics in the environment. And that's what my job is as an economic and geopolitical strategist, is to help world leaders understand those trends socially, politically, economically, militarily. Last but not least, complexity theory. Innovation is extremely complex. It's not something you can just sprinkle a little data and say, here's how you do it in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't work like that. You can't take something from 5 years ago and say it's relevant now. You can't take something from 20 years ago and say it's relevant now. Because how you design innovation in the 21st century is fundamentally, structurally different than it's ever been before because of all the trends I'm talking about. Economically, politically, militarily, environmentally. Next, 4 key factors, just to give a little bit more tangible information for you on what innovation is. As I talked before, trust. If you don't have trust, it doesn't matter. You will never innovate if you don't have trust. Okay? It's really that fundamentally simple. 2, you have motivations for a long-term vision. How do we get Saudi Arabia to a certain spot to start leapfrogging like this over the next 10, 20 years? Because otherwise, we're just going to do short-term things like this. You're going to waste money, you're going to waste time, and before you know it, a huge gap is created in the market, and you can never make it up. Because people are moving faster and faster and making bolder and bolder investments. Most people are moving roughly at about this pace right now. I'm challenging this country to start moving at this pace. 3rd, social norms promoting collaboration. That's across tribes, that's across castes, that's across countries, that's across boundaries, that's across oceans. Okay? You have to have access across value chains globally or else innovation doesn't work. 4th, rapid experimentation. I can't tell you how many countries I go to, whether it's Ghana, Afghanistan, here, Brazil. Everybody says, Gary, entrepreneurship is too risky. Well, I'll tell you, if you look at the Ease of Doing Business report, Saudi Arabia has moved into the top fastest changing economies in the world. So the opportunity for rapid experimentation in this country is at the top of what it's ever been in world history. And, well, at least in the past couple hundred years. And we have to understand how to harness outliers, the bold thinkers, the folks that want to build coalitions, the folks that want to put their money, their livelihood on the line. Because culturally, obviously, that's not what is done here. But it needs to be if we're going to get where we need to get to stay relevant in the 21st century, to optimize for the amount of power, to optimize for the amount of influence, to optimize for the opportunity to move at the speed that this country can. So, a couple deep fundamentals for you. 6 reasons why innovation fails, so that all of you and your companies and your communities and your families and in particular your country can speak more intelligently about why innovation, entrepreneurship, economic development, jobs, all of that, why it fails. Everybody likes to point at lack of education rates. People like to point to wars. Look, folks, I'm going to break the world down very simply for you. I've spent time in more than 120 countries, right? I've done about 3 million miles in planes in the past 5 years. There's very few people that understand more about the ground level in the world than me. It's very simple. No matter where you are in the world, Brazil, Afghanistan, here, Nigeria, Ghana, Philippines, Japan, human beings want 3 things. They want to be happy, they want to be healthy, and they want an ability to take care of their family. If you do that, things go well. Doesn't matter how many people are educated or not. Doesn't matter whether wars are going on or not. But guess what? If you don't do those 3 things, guess what happens to human beings? They get enslaved, they get raped and pillaged, and they get murdered. That's what happens when you don't have innovation. Job creation is the fundamental drivers of a country. This country is trying to do the right things for the right reasons. It has the right military strategy. It has the right economic vision. Now we're trying to take it to the next level with a couple of these ways in which it's very easy to move out from being ready to take advantage of what you could. So I'm going to move through these really quick because it's kind of heavy. Sun Tzu said it best, right? The Chinese Don. Lack of concentration of forces. What you have to understand is that innovation has 6 stages. And in those 6 stages, there are certain things you need to do in each stage in the public and private sector. Nonprofits, for-profits, city organizations, state organizations, national organizations, right? Small companies, big companies, international companies, right? NGOs, strategic partners. I could go on and on. Universities. There's literally more than 100 strategic partners that at any given time need to be doing something at each of the stages. So let's just do quick math. If there's 6 stages and there's more than 100 partners that you need to understand how to work with, that's 600 variables. That's how people screw up innovation, because they don't see the Rubik's Cube. They don't see the fact that there's 600 different variables at any given time that need to be harnessed, that need to be nurtured, and need to grow the right way at the right time for the right reasons. Second, wrong mental models. I'll tell you what, I wrote an article for the Arab News and the Saudi news agency that'll be running, I think, tomorrow, where I talked about conventional wisdom, where I talked about the fact that most countries who don't have access use brand names. They use 20th century paradigms, 18th century paradigms, perspectives, models, strategies, structures. All these things are irrelevant in the 21st century. And we don't necessarily have everybody on the same page with those 600 variables, understanding what the right strategies, structures, models, and methods are. So as you can probably see very quickly, if you don't have the right strategy, structures, models, and methods for 600 different variables at any time, it's easy to screw it up, right? Not rocket science, pretty easy. So, third, time is ticking. How to leverage that $34 trillion that this country has in resources to build jobs, build growth, build companies, build an economy, build a future of the Silk Road, the future of the Arab world. It's time dependent. You don't get 20 years to figure this out. You don't get 20 years to take what I'm telling you right now and figure it out. You get 5 to 7 at the most, because there's countries moving bigger, brighter, bolder, and faster right now than ever before. There's countries that have information technology at the core of their strategies, right? They're moving faster than anybody else, so you have to move. Fourth, discrimination is a funny word, because people think that discrimination is always bad. But when it comes to innovation, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to geopolitical strategy, which at its core is economic development, right? If you don't ruthlessly discriminate, you're going to waste time, you're going to waste resources, and you're going to screw it up. And normally what happens when you do that, right, at a big scale, is people get really, really unhappy, and you have social and civil unrest, which is something this country obviously does not need, nor does it want, nor does it has to happen. So how do you make sure that doesn't happen? Well, you create jobs, you build companies, you give people opportunity. Well, how do you give people opportunity? You have to understand the issues and challenges that are being faced now and are coming in the future, right? Most people don't spend the time to understand the social, economic, political, military challenges. All of those, right? So let me break that down. 600 variables, 6 different stages, 4 separate variables. That's 24,000 different variables of how to build and scale an economy. Gets very complex very quickly. Very complex. Number 5, planning. If you want to sit there and plan, that's cool. But planning is going to piss off performance. You can't perform if you're planning all the time, because that means you don't have a bold enough vision. All you have is people that do things instead of create things. All you have is yes people instead of folks that dream, do things, create, hop on planes, build strategic partnerships. As I've already said, innovation is asymmetric. It's also interdependent, socially, politically, economically, and militarily. Building companies is not just something that is an economic strategy. It facilitates itself into all different parts of life. Every single part of life in our world is based on economics, because if people aren't happy, healthy, and have an ability to take care of their family, you don't have stability. You don't have security. So therefore, economics is what is at the core, and innovation is what drives economics. Also, most folks do not have an innovation roadmap. They literally don't understand that innovation communities do have a roadmap. They don't understand how and why people cooperate, when and where people cooperate, and how long of a timeline it takes to cooperate, which is more than 10 years. Right? It is not a short-term thing, once again. You need a vision 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. I would love to see a Saudi Arabia 2100 vision, 2100 story. I don't see it. We're going to talk about it, though. I'm going to propose one to you. Because you have to intentionally design for innovation. Deep fundamentals for encouraging innovation, which is the last part of my presentation. Number one, here's 5 important human trends right now. Okay? These trends are what are going to decide whether Saudi Arabia leapfrogs and transforms or continues just If these aren't strategically taken into account, I will promise you, you won't even go forward, you'll go backward. There's a lot of countries that are doing the backward thing right now, right? Decentralized forms of power, right? Power more than ever is in a smartphone. Right now, there's more power in that smartphone than the United States had in 1960 when it was trying to go to the moon. Evolution of networks, digital networks in particular, means the rapid acceleration of information that can be very overwhelming and extremely destabilizing. Third, rise of community. Communities now are fragmented, which leads to more extremism. So there needs to be an opportunity for a bold conversation where everybody can stand up and come together. Fourth, trust of tribes. More than ever, with that fragmentation in community, you have more and more tribalism, which once again breeds itself for more and more extremism. So it's more and more important to have the right culture for people to stand up and come together with the right message, with the right vision, that's bold, that not just in Riyadh can believe in, not just somebody in Saudi Arabia can believe in, but the whole Arab world, and then eventually all of the globe, all 7.4 billion human beings. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. Because last but not least, it's a borderless world. So what happens in this country over the next 10 years has the ability to directly affect 7.4 billion human beings if it's intentionally designed the right way for the right reasons at the right time. So let's talk a little bit about that. We start. You know, I was at the Saudi Arabia History Museum yesterday. And there's this one artifact that's as long as this and tells a visual story of the history of your country. And it's so long comparatively to my country, right? It's been around 200 and almost 30 years, whatever, right? Your country's been around for centuries. It's like, whoosh, right? I mean, the size of America is here. Your country, whew. So what's interesting to me about that when it comes to heritage is the fundamental opportunity to leverage the history to inform, rediscover, and redesign values and culture for the 21st century, right? It's very rare that you have such a deep, such a rich history, physically, socially, politically. It's extremely rare. And if leveraged the right way, it creates a global competitive advantage. But you have to design. You have to be intentionally designing around that. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how do you design? First, you have to direct innovation. Humans need an opportunity to create. How you direct them to create is a whole separate challenge, okay? And then you need to plan the technology that's going to accelerate what they're creating, right? The fundamental basis for the word technology is techne. It's an Egyptian word. Technology is not just information technology. It's any platform that accelerates intent. But if you're creating something and then you're accelerating it, you sure as heck better have shared values at the core of what you're doing, or else bad things happen. Because humans always exploit the best things that they ever create. If you look in world history, that's what we do. Something's created for a good reason, but eventually is used for the wrong reason. Nuclear energy is a perfect example. Fourth, how do we talk about inclusive justice? Especially in this region of the world and especially in this country. It's something obviously the country's struggling a little bit with. How do we talk about how we can empower women? How do we talk about how we empower youth? These are the conversations I have all the time in places like Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Brazil, Chile. I don't know if you looked in the news today, but Chile is basically on fire for particular reasons that have to do with everything we're talking about here. No jobs, no future, can't take care of their family, 2 million people in the streets. Very simple why these things are happening. Next. When it comes to culture, identifying a crisis or an opportunity is not the same thing as designing it. So I'm going to spend the next 3 to 4 minutes, because that's all I got left, helping all of you understand how to design for that $500 billion in value creation. As Gandhi said, speed is irrelevant if you're going in the wrong direction. So you can have the best vision in the world, you can go as fast as you want, but if you don't have the right one, it doesn't matter. So here's the fundamental way that you make sure you're always doing the right things for the right reasons at the right time. And it's a strategic global advantage that your country has because of its cultural heritage. The first ingredient is culture, because culture is what informs the processes. Culture and heritage should be fundamentally informing not just Vision 2030, but Vision 2100 at a new level, at a new scale that's bigger, bolder, and brighter. We're going to talk about that. And those processes then supplement knowledge. In countries that think about pieces of paper and education so much, they think having a degree matters more. What matters more than anything is having the right culture, because you can import knowledge, you can't import culture, right? The Emirates is a perfect example of trying to manufacture a culture with big glossy buildings, and it's not going to work. It'll work for a little while, but that's a small hack. It's not actually a very foundational bottom. It's quicksand. It's actually economic quicksand, is what it is. So, why? Right? Why does Saudi Arabia exist? What is the intrinsic motivation that is going to allow every single Saudi Arabian and every single Arab to get involved with the vision for this country for the age of 2100? It's the story. What is a bold story for this country in one sentence that everybody in the Arab world can get involved with? I'm going to propose one to you right now. To ensure humanity has an inclusive beacon for quality of life alongside nature on the 21st century Silk Road. Whether you're a 60-year-old person or you're a 6-year-old person, you can understand what that means, right? That's talking about humanity and inclusion, right? Boldness, bigger, brighter, and ties to the historical roots of the Silk Road. And we just got a couple more slides to go here. You got to have a purpose. Everybody who then tells the story has to have a purpose. It has all that energy has to be designed a certain way. So what are the organizing principles for people who tell the story of Saudi Arabia going forward in the Arab world? And for people like me who travel to 50 countries a year? Well, Saudi Arabia is rediscovering its roots. It's redesigning where it's going. It's realigning itself. It's looking future forward, and it's rapidly iterating. These are some of the principles that should be taught to people who are telling the story, sharing the culture of this country. Third, vision. What is the direction for Saudi Arabia? I read the Vision 2030. The document's 80 pages. I don't need 80 pages. Nobody needs 80 pages because nobody's going to listen to 80 pages. What people need is one sentence, one bold sentence, one simple sentence, a sentence that a 60-year-old can understand and a 6-year-old could understand, right? Because if you have a bold vision in the 21st century in a borderless world, you can change the future of not just this country, but you can change the future of the world. And this country has a history, a heritage of changing the world. What does that sentence look like? This is what I would propose the vision is for Saudi Arabia for the next 100, 200, 300 years. The most inclusive, prosperous, high-tech social monarchy in the entire world. Seems pretty bold, doesn't it? Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? Anybody can understand what that means. Because this sentence right here, folks, has social implications, economic implications, political implications, military implications. In one sentence, I just showed you how to take everything that this country is trying to do and internationalize it to more than 220 countries. That's the level of simplicity, deep distilled simplicity this country needs to get where it needs to go. Bigger, bolder, brighter, faster. Last but not least, mission. What is the action that needs to be taken by the warriors who believe in this country and the future of the Arab world? What's the rallying cry? Why are people going to get involved? Why are people going to put their credibility on the line? Why are people going to use their time, their resources to do the right things at the right time for the right reasons? This is it. This is how we get where we need to go, folks. I broke it down really simply for you. 10, 10, 50. Saudi Arabia does not need thousands of companies. It needs 10 companies over the next 10 years that makes $50 million in revenue each. You do that, you solve your entire unemployment crisis. Period, end. You tie those 10 companies to 3 to 5 industries that are historically relevant in this country. Really simple. Because you have family offices, government institutions, universities, all of them understand those old types and legacy industries. Not all this new tech stuff. You import the new tech stuff. Stick with the industries that you understand. Look for 2 million jobs, 650,000 of them in ICT. 8% annual GDP growth, 500 billion in new market cap, and then 250% GDP per capita above the average in the EU 28. That's how you do it. Folks, that is how you do it. If you go back to this slide, in 5 bullets, I showed you how to make, strategically, $500 billion in value happen within the next 10 years. 10, 10, 50. Not rocket science how to do it, but it's this sentence that matters. It's the process level, particularly in a monarchy like this, that matters. Concentration of the forces at a decisive point, leveraged intentionally. Thank you very much for your time, and I welcome any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.